Have you ever felt overwhelmed by your emotions, anger that boils over, fear that freezes you, or envy that quietly steals your joy? You're not alone. In the noise and speed of modern life, many of us are searching for something deeper: peace, clarity, strength. But where do we begin? 2,000 years ago, a group of thinkers called the Stoics faced a world full of uncertainty, conflict, and change, much like ours today. But instead of being swept away by their emotions, they learned to navigate life with a quiet power. They didn't escape difficulty, they embraced it, transformed it, and grew stronger through it. This video is not a history lesson. It's a conversation, a journey into timeless wisdom, told in a way that meets you where you are. Each lesson explores a specific emotional challenge and shows how Stoic practices can help us meet it with grace and resolve. Whether it's fear, anger, impatience, or the craving for more, these pages offer something simple yet profound, a way to return to yourself. You don't need to be a philosopher to benefit from Stoic thought. You just need a willingness to pause, reflect, and take small steps toward emotional freedom. Through gentle stories, clear guidance, and practical exercises, this book invites you to rediscover your inner strength, the kind that can't be shaken by the world outside. So take a breath, open your mind, and let's begin this journey together. The nature of emotional control, a Stoic perspective. Why do we so often feel like our emotions are in control of us, rather than the other way around? In today's fast-paced and unpredictable world, emotional turbulence can feel inevitable. But what if the chaos we experience doesn't stem from the events themselves, but from how we interpret them? The Stoics, wise thinkers like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, believed that events in life are neutral. It's our judgments, our labels, and our interpretations that give rise to emotional responses. As Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The moment we believe an event is bad or harmful, that's when we begin to suffer. Not because of the event itself, but because of what we've told ourselves about it. Let's take a simple example. Imagine someone cuts you off in traffic. The action itself is just that, an action. But if you instantly label it as disrespectful and feel personally targeted, anger flares. What if, instead, you practiced a brief pause, took a breath, and reminded yourself that you don't know the full story? Maybe the other driver is rushing to the hospital. That small shift in perception can change your entire emotional reaction. This is the heart of Stoic emotional control, inserting space between stimulus and response. By recognizing that our initial reactions are not the final word, we open ourselves up to a more thoughtful, reasoned response. One practical Stoic exercise is daily journaling. At the end of each day, take 5 minutes to reflect on moments where your emotions ran high. What triggered them? What interpretation did you assign? Could there have been another way to see the situation? Another Stoic technique is called cognitive distancing. This involves mentally stepping back and observing your emotions as if you were watching someone else. By doing so, you reduce their intensity and gain clarity. Have you ever looked back at a past outburst and thought, "That really wasn't worth getting upset about"? That's cognitive distancing in retrospect. Stoicism teaches us to do that in the moment. It's also helpful to ask ourselves, what lies beneath my reaction? Is it fear of losing control? A craving for validation? Often, our emotions are messengers carrying deeper beliefs. When we examine these beliefs, we can begin to transform our inner life. In essence, Stoicism doesn't tell us to suppress emotions, but to understand and redirect them. Emotional mastery, from this perspective, is not about being cold or indifferent, but about living with awareness, intention, and inner strength. As modern Americans searching for peace and clarity in a chaotic world, this ancient wisdom offers a timeless, transformative path forward. So, the next time you feel overwhelmed, pause. Ask yourself, is it the event, or my judgment of it, that's causing this feeling? That single question may hold the key to serenity. Lesson 1. Stoic Emotional Resilience. Why do we struggle so often with emotions that seem to overpower us? In moments of conflict, disappointment, or even joy, it's easy to feel like our emotions are pulling the strings. But the ancient Stoics had a different take. They believed that emotions aren't simply reactions to events, they are shaped by our judgments, interpretations, and beliefs. This insight lies at the heart of what the Stoics called emotional resilience. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, reminded himself often, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." These words still resonate today. The key to emotional resilience, according to Stoicism, is not to suppress our emotions but to understand and recalibrate them by examining how we think. Have you ever reacted instantly to a stressful situation, only to regret it later? That flash of anger, panic, or sadness, where does it really come from? The Stoics would say it originates not from the situation itself, but from the way we interpret it. That's why one of their core practices was the pause, a conscious moment between the trigger and the response. This pause is where emotional strength is built. It allows the rational mind to step in before we are swept away by impulse. One practical way to train this habit is through the Stoic practice of daily reflection. Take time each evening to write in a journal, "When did I lose my temper today? What belief or thought caused it? Could I have seen the event differently?" The Stoics also taught a technique known as cognitive distancing, observing your emotions as if from a slight distance, almost like watching someone else go through them. Can you recall a moment when you looked back at a difficult situation and thought, "I could have handled that better"? That hindsight is what Stoics try to cultivate in real time. By viewing emotions through a wider lens, we can reduce their grip on us. Another powerful tool is to ask yourself, what's really behind this emotion? Often, we'll find a belief, a fear of failure, a desire for control, or a need for approval that's driving our response. When we uncover these hidden drivers, we can begin to shift our patterns. Emotional resilience doesn't mean you won't feel sadness, anger, or frustration. It means you'll have the tools to respond to those emotions thoughtfully and constructively. You become less like a leaf tossed by the wind and more like a tree rooted in reason. So next time you feel overwhelmed, pause, take a breath, ask, what story am I telling myself right now? Could I see this differently? In doing so, you practice one of the Stoics' greatest gifts, transforming emotion into insight and reaction into response. Lesson 2. Managing anger through a Stoic lens. Anger is often described as one of the most intense and disruptive emotions we experience. It can arise suddenly, burn quickly, and leave behind damage we later regret. Why does it have such a hold on us? According to the Stoics, anger is not just an emotional reaction. It's a sign that our expectations are clashing with reality. Seneca, a Roman Stoic philosopher, called anger a form of temporary madness. He believed that when we give in to anger, we lose sight of reason and act in ways that undermine our own peace. For the Stoics, the path to managing anger wasn't about pretending it doesn't exist. Instead, it was about understanding its roots and using reason to respond more wisely. Where does anger really come from? Often, it arises when we believe we've been treated unfairly or when reality fails to meet our expectations. But what if the problem lies not in the event, but in the expectations themselves? The Stoics taught that by adjusting our expectations to reflect the unpredictability of life and the fallibility of human nature, we can reduce the frequency and intensity of anger. One useful Stoic exercise is called the premeditation of evils, premeditatio malorum. This involves mentally preparing yourself each day for the annoyances and setbacks that might occur: traffic jams, rude comments, delays. When they happen, you're not surprised. You've already rehearsed your calm response. How different might your day feel if you approached each irritation with a sense of readiness rather than resistance? Another powerful tool is the view from above. When you feel anger rising, try to mentally zoom out. Imagine yourself from a higher perspective, perhaps from the sky or even from space. See how small this moment really is in the grand scheme of things. This practice can soften anger's edge and help us respond with perspective and humility. In the heat of the moment, practical steps matter too. Deep breathing, counting to 10, or even removing yourself from the situation briefly can create space for reason to step in. These aren't just coping mechanisms, they are training tools for the mind. They allow you to pause, reflect, and choose a better response. Stoicism also teaches us to reflect afterward. At the end of the day, consider: what triggered my anger? What expectation did I hold? Was it realistic? Journaling about these moments helps us spot patterns and prepare for future situations with more clarity and patience. Managing anger the Stoic way doesn't mean becoming emotionless. It means transforming the energy of anger into awareness and strength. It means responding to life's inevitable frustrations not with impulsive fire, but with calm resolve. In doing so, we protect our inner peace, and that, the Stoics believed, is one of the highest goods. Lesson 3. Overcoming fear with Stoic flexibility. Fear is a powerful force. It can hold us back, cloud our judgment, and keep us from living the life we truly want. Yet, the ancient Stoics believed that fear is not something to be eradicated, but something to be understood and managed through reason and adaptability. According to Stoic philosophy, fear often arises from our perception of the unknown, from our desire to control outcomes that are, by their nature, uncontrollable. We fear what we cannot predict, and we dread losing the safety, comfort, or stability we've come to rely on. But what if the key to dissolving fear is not gaining control, but changing our relationship to uncertainty? The Stoics taught a concept we might call flexibility of the soul. an inner resilience that allows us to bend without breaking. By adjusting our attitudes and expectations, we learn to face uncertainty with a calm and open mind. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, reminded his students, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." How do we develop this kind of flexibility? A practical Stoic approach involves regularly reflecting on what is within our control and what isn't. We can control our thoughts, our actions, and our interpretations, but we cannot control the external world. By focusing on our own responses rather than external events, we reduce fear's grip and regain a sense of agency. Another powerful technique is contemplating impermanence. All situations, whether joyful or painful, are temporary. When we remind ourselves of this truth, we begin to see change and uncertainty not as threats, but as natural aspects of life. Try a daily meditation. Sit quietly and reflect on something in your life that has changed. Something that once frightened you but is now behind you. Let that memory remind you of your capacity to adapt. The Stoics also valued gradual exposure to fear. What makes you anxious today? Is there a small, manageable way to face it? Just a little? Like a modern version of exposure therapy. This practice helps build courage incrementally. Each small step becomes proof that fear can be met and moved through. And don't forget the value of reflection. Look back on times when you faced fear and came through stronger. Let those moments reinforce your confidence and deepen your trust in your own resilience. This isn't just philosophy, it's personal history. And it's powerful. Ultimately, overcoming fear doesn't mean becoming fearless. It means becoming more flexible, more grounded in reason, and more connected to what truly matters. As we learn to work with life rather than against it, we find not only peace, but also the quiet strength to move forward, even when the path is unclear. Lesson 4. Mastering emotional responses through Stoic acceptance. Life constantly presents us with challenges, some large, others subtle, but all capable of stirring deep emotional reactions. How often do we find ourselves swept up in frustration, sadness, or anxiety, not because of what happened, but because of how we responded to it? The Stoics believed that emotional turmoil doesn't come from events themselves, but from our judgments about those events. This perspective is the foundation of what they called Stoic acceptance. To practice Stoic acceptance is not to give up or passively resign ourselves to fate. Instead, it means choosing to focus our energy where it truly matters, on our own thoughts, actions, and attitudes. As Epictetus taught, some things are up to us, and some things are not. This simple yet profound distinction helps us reclaim our inner peace. When you face a setback, a canceled plan, a harsh comment, a missed opportunity, what do you tell yourself? Often, we jump to conclusions or blame ourselves or others. But what if we paused instead? What if we acknowledged, "This is outside my control. I will not let it disturb my peace"? That is the essence of Stoic acceptance. A useful Stoic practice is daily reflection. Each evening, take a few quiet moments to think back on your day. When did you react emotionally? Was that reaction helpful? What could you have done differently? Over time, this reflection builds awareness and gives us the ability to respond more thoughtfully in the future. Another helpful technique is rehearsing this idea of control during calm moments. Mentally prepare yourself. Today, Things may not go as planned. People may act rudely. Delays may happen. But I can choose how I respond. This preparation strengthens your emotional defenses and allows you to meet life with clarity and calm. When emotions do rise, you can apply simple but powerful techniques. Take a breath, count to 5, or ask yourself, what would a Stoic do right now? These brief moments of pause create space between the stimulus and your response, a space where wisdom can grow. It's important to remember that acceptance is not weakness. It's strength in its most grounded form. It means refusing to be a victim of circumstances and instead standing firmly in your own values and clarity. Over time, this mindset becomes a way of life, one that brings resilience, balance, and inner stability. Stoic acceptance offers us the freedom to live more peacefully, not because life is easier, but because we are steadier. When we stop wasting energy on what we can't change and invest it in how we think and act, we begin to transform our emotional world. And in that transformation, we discover a quiet strength that no external storm can shake. Lesson 5. Dealing with envy through Stoic wisdom. Envy is a quiet but persistent emotion. It sneaks in when we compare our lives to others, whispering that we are not enough, that we are missing something someone else has. In a world filled with social media highlights and constant comparisons, envy can quickly erode our sense of peace and self-worth. But the Stoics offered us a different lens, one that redirects our attention inward and helps us restore balance. The Stoics understood that envy arises not from others' successes, but from our judgment of what those successes mean. When we believe that happiness lies in wealth, status, or appearance, we become vulnerable to envy. We begin to see others' achievements as reflections of our own lack. But as Epictetus reminded his students, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. Stoic wisdom encourages us to shift our focus from what others have to what we can cultivate within ourselves. Instead of measuring our worth through external comparisons, we learn to assess it through virtue, our character, our actions, and our growth. The moment we stop trying to win someone else's race, we begin to appreciate our own unique path. One powerful Stoic exercise is the practice of gratitude. Each day, take a few minutes to reflect on what you have, your relationships, your progress, your inner strengths. Write them down. This simple habit grounds you in abundance and quiets the longing that fuels envy. What if, instead of resenting someone else's success, we took it as a reminder to be grateful for our own blessings? Another practice is to reflect on the impermanence of external goods. Fame, money, and beauty are all fleeting. They come and go, often without warning. The Stoics taught that placing our happiness in things that can be taken away is a recipe for suffering. But when we anchor ourselves in what cannot be lost, our integrity, our efforts, our values, we find a deeper, more lasting fulfillment. When envy arises, pause and ask yourself, what am I really longing for? Is it recognition? Security? A sense of worth? Then gently remind yourself that these can be built from within, not borrowed from others. Self-awareness is key here. Noticing the first spark of envy gives you the opportunity to choose a different response before it takes root. By replacing envy with self-reflection, with gratitude, and with a focus on personal virtue, we transform our inner world. Envy loses its grip when we stop measuring ourselves by someone else's story. And in doing so, we cultivate a quiet contentment, one rooted not in comparison, but in self-understanding and peace. This is the Stoic path to overcoming envy, not denial, but redirection, not judgment, but perspective. And through that shift, we discover a more grounded, resilient joy. Lesson 6. Cultivating patience through Stoic practice. In a world that celebrates speed, instant gratification, and constant achievement, patience can feel like a forgotten virtue. We are conditioned to expect quick results, fast answers, and immediate responses. But what happens when life doesn't move on our schedule? The Stoics believed that impatience is not just a lack of time, it's a misunderstanding of time and control. According to Stoic philosophy, patience is deeply rooted in the understanding that much of life is beyond our direct influence. Nature follows its own rhythm. People act in ways we can't predict. Outcomes unfold on their own timeline. When we grasp this truth, we begin to shift our expectations. And in that shift, patience is born. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, often reminded himself that frustrations are natural. You must be patient, he wrote, with the faults of others, and even more so with the delays of the world. Stoic patience is not passive resignation, it is active acceptance. It involves choosing to meet each moment as it is, without demanding that it be different. How can we cultivate this kind of patience in daily life? One method is to consciously slow down when we feel triggered. If someone speaks harshly, if traffic is backed up, or if a plan falls through, take a breath. Ask yourself, is this within my control? If not, then resisting it only adds unnecessary tension. Another practice is to reflect on the impermanence of our frustrations. What bothers us now is unlikely to matter in a week, let alone a year. This kind of reflection can help us zoom out and put things in perspective. Try a daily Stoic exercise. At the end of the day, write down 3 moments when you felt impatient. Then, for each one, reflect on how you might meet that situation with greater calm next time. Empathy also plays a key role in building patience. When someone tests our limits, can we imagine their struggles, their fears, their point of view? By doing so, we humanize the situation and soften our reactions. The Stoics believed that we are all fellow travelers in life, imperfect, evolving, and deserving of understanding. Cultivating patience also means simplifying our lives. When we're overcommitted, overwhelmed, or constantly stimulated, impatience becomes our default mode. But when we intentionally slow down, create space, and focus on what truly matters, patience has room to grow. Patience, in the Stoic sense, is strength held in stillness. It is not weak or passive, it's steady, wise, and deeply grounded in reality. As we practice this virtue, we not only suffer less from life's delays, but we begin to live more fully in each present moment. This is the quiet power of patience, a gentle discipline that connects us to ourselves, to others, and to the natural flow of life. Lesson 7. Cultivating courage in adversity through Stoic wisdom. Courage is often imagined as dramatic acts of heroism, charging into battle, risking it all, standing alone against impossible odds. But the Stoics saw courage differently. They understood it as a steady, inner strength, a readiness to endure discomfort, uncertainty, and fear in order to live with integrity and purpose. In this way, courage isn't just about facing physical danger. It's about confronting emotional, moral, and spiritual challenges with clarity and calm. In modern life, adversity can come in many forms. A difficult conversation, a loss, a moment of doubt or failure. These experiences test us in quieter but equally demanding ways. The Stoics believed that true courage lies in how we respond to these internal battles. As Seneca put it, sometimes even to live is an act of courage. So, how can we develop this kind of courage? One way is to start small. Each day presents opportunities, however minor, to step into discomfort. Speaking up in a meeting, admitting a mistake, reaching out to someone in need. These actions build resilience. They train the mind and heart to stay grounded, even when fear or uncertainty is present. Over time, what once felt impossible becomes familiar terrain. Reflection also plays a key role. Take time to recall past experiences where you showed courage, even in small ways. Perhaps you endured a painful period with grace. Maybe you made a difficult but honest choice. These moments remind you of your inner strength. Keeping a journal of such instances can serve as a quiet reservoir of encouragement for future challenges. The Stoics also taught that courage is deeply connected to values. When you know what matters most, truth, kindness, justice, you have a compass that can guide you through fear. You're no longer acting to avoid discomfort. You're acting to stay aligned with who you are. And that, in itself, is an act of bravery. Community matters, too. Courage grows in connection, surrounding yourself with people who support your values, who model strength and wisdom, makes it easier to stand firm. We don't need to walk alone. Even the Stoics, often seen as solitary, drew inspiration from teachers, friends, and fellow philosophers. Another practical Stoic exercise is to regularly visualize adversity, not in a pessimistic way, but in preparation. Ask yourself, what would I do if this happened? How can I respond with dignity and reason? This mental rehearsal equips you to meet hardship not with panic, but with poise. Courage, as the Stoics taught, isn't loud, it's quiet, steady, and persistent. It shows up not just in moments of crisis, but in daily acts of honesty, endurance, and moral clarity. By nurturing this kind of courage, we build a foundation that can carry us through life's most uncertain terrain, with grace, with strength, and with peace. Lesson 8. Cultivating contentment the Stoic way. Why is contentment so elusive in our modern lives? Despite abundance, opportunities, and comforts that previous generations could only dream of, many of us still feel restless, unsatisfied, and always searching for more. The Stoics saw this clearly. Even 2,000 years ago, they believed that the root of discontent lies not in our circumstances, but in our desires, and that true peace comes from simplifying those desires and aligning our lives with inner virtue. According to Stoic philosophy, contentment is not something we find outside of ourselves. It isn't about acquiring more, achieving more, or becoming someone else. It is about appreciating what we already have and who we already are. As Epictetus wrote, he is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has. So how do we apply this in the real world, where comparison and competition surround us? One powerful Stoic exercise is the daily practice of gratitude. Each morning or evening, write down 3 things you're grateful for. They don't need to be extraordinary: a warm cup of coffee, a kind word from a friend, or the quiet of early morning. This simple habit trains the mind to shift focus from scarcity to sufficiency. Another essential practice is distinguishing between needs and wants. Ask yourself, do I truly need this to be fulfilled? Or have I simply been conditioned to want it? The Stoics remind us that many of the things we chase, wealth, status, praise, are fleeting and fragile. They can be taken from us at any moment. But virtues like honesty, kindness, and discipline, these are fully within our control, and they offer a more lasting sense of purpose and satisfaction. To further support this shift, we can intentionally limit our exposure to sources of comparison. Social media, advertising, and consumer culture often inflame desire by making us feel like we're missing out. Creating boundaries, digital or otherwise, around these influences can help us hear our own values more clearly and make space for authentic contentment. Simplifying our daily routines also helps. This doesn't mean living with nothing, but rather living with intention. Focus on fewer tasks, deeper conversations, and more meaningful experiences. When life is less cluttered, it's easier to appreciate what's already here. Lastly, reflect on the impermanence of material things. Remind yourself that possessions wear out, achievements fade, and even comfort comes and goes. By holding these truths gently, we become less attached to what is temporary and more invested in what is timeless. Contentment, in the Stoic view, is not passive. It is a powerful, conscious choice to live in harmony with reality, to desire less, appreciate more, and root ourselves in what truly matters. And in doing so, we open ourselves to a quieter, deeper joy, one not dependent on what we gain, but on what we've already been given. Lesson 9. Embracing change with Stoic adaptability. Change is the only constant in life, yet it is also one of the most difficult things for us to accept. We plan carefully, build routines, and set expectations, only to be disrupted by the unpredictable nature of reality. Whether it's a career shift, a personal loss, or a sudden change in health or circumstance, life often reminds us that control is more limited than we like to believe. The Stoics understood this deeply and taught that adaptability is not just a skill, but a virtue essential for peace of mind. In Stoic philosophy, adaptability means more than simply adjusting to what happens. It means aligning ourselves with the nature of life itself. As Epictetus reminded his students, don't seek for everything to happen as you wish it would, but rather wish that everything happens as it actually will, and your life will flow well. This teaching encourages us to flow with events rather than resist them. To begin cultivating this kind of mental flexibility, we must first acknowledge what is within our control: our attitudes, our choices, and our interpretations. The rest, outcomes, other people's actions, external circumstances, are not ours to command. By focusing our energy on what we can influence, we reduce frustration and develop the capacity to bend without breaking. A helpful Stoic practice is scenario planning. Take a moment each week to ask, what if things don't go as planned? What will I do if I'm delayed? disappointed, or challenged. This mental rehearsal prepares us to meet the unexpected with readiness rather than resistance. It doesn't make us pessimists, it makes us prepared. Another exercise involves contemplating impermanence. Reflect on how things have changed in your past, your home, your relationships, your job. Recognize that nothing stays the same. And yet, you've adapted before. This reflection builds confidence in your ability to adjust again. The Stoics also encouraged healthy detachment. This doesn't mean not caring, it means not clinging. When we tie our happiness to specific outcomes, we set ourselves up for suffering. But when we root our peace in our own virtue and effort, we can face change with grace. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Receive without pride, let go without attachment." In modern life, adaptability is more essential than ever. The pace of change is rapid, and uncertainty is constant. But by practicing Stoic adaptability, we build a mindset that is calm, clear, and resilient. We stop fighting against the current and learn instead to navigate with wisdom. Ultimately, adaptability means living in harmony with the truth of life, that nothing is fixed, and everything evolves. When we embrace this truth, we discover not just resilience, but a deeper kind of freedom, the freedom to grow, to adjust, and to find peace in the unfolding of things. Lesson 10. The Stoic practice of self-mastery. In a world where external distractions are constant and temptations lie around every corner, the idea of self-mastery might seem old-fashioned or even out of reach. But for the Stoics, self-mastery wasn't just a lofty ideal, it was the foundation of freedom, peace, and lasting fulfillment. They believed that to govern one's own mind, actions, and impulses is the highest form of power. Self-mastery, in the Stoic tradition, is not about harsh control or denying all pleasure. Rather, it's about aligning our actions with reason and virtue. It's about living deliberately, rather than being swept along by whims, cravings, or the opinions of others. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." So how do we cultivate self-mastery in a noisy, fast-paced world? It begins with awareness. We must observe our thoughts and behaviors with honesty. What habits undermine your peace? What patterns pull you away from who you truly want to be? By identifying these, we can begin the work of transformation, not through judgment, but through conscious, consistent effort. A practical way to start is by setting daily intentions. Each morning, choose one virtue to focus on, perhaps patience, humility, or diligence. Throughout the day, remind yourself of this intention. This practice doesn't require perfection, only presence. Over time, it strengthens your inner discipline and helps bring your values into action. The Stoics also valued the practice of voluntary discomfort. They would, at times, forego certain pleasures or face small hardships willingly, not to punish themselves, but to build resilience. Could you go a day without checking social media? Skip a meal? Walk instead of drive? These small acts help loosen our dependence on comfort and remind us of our own strength. Another essential component is reflection. At the end of each day, take time to review your actions. Did you stay true to your values? Where did you falter? And what can you learn? This process isn't about guilt, it's about growth. Journaling is a helpful tool here, offering a space to track your journey toward greater self-mastery. Importantly, self-mastery is not about becoming rigid or emotionless. It's about becoming grounded, able to respond rather than react, to choose your path rather than be driven by impulse. When challenges arise, ask yourself, what would my best self do here? That question alone can redirect your course. The pursuit of self-mastery is lifelong. It's not about achieving a final state of perfection, but about engaging in daily, meaningful effort. As you walk this path, you'll find that peace comes not from controlling the world, but from mastering the one thing that truly belongs to you, yourself. Before you rush back into the noise of the world, take a moment to sit with what you've just heard. Here at Stoic Timeless Lessons, we don't just explore ancient wisdom, we invite you to live it, breathe it, and slowly let it reshape your days. What if your next challenge is not something to fear, but a quiet teacher in disguise? Stay with us, subscribe, and join a journey that's less about escaping life and more about meeting it fully. Something within you is ready to awaken, and you don't want to miss what's coming next.